Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Shmup Reviewplay. Today I'm taking a look at Dodonpachi DOJ Black Label Plus for the Xbox 360, if that's not enough of a mouthful for you. So I decided to start the vid by launching the game and showing just how delightfully long the load time for this game is. Mind you, this is post-patch. So for those who are not aware, this port, DOJ Plus, originally came out in an unpatched form, you could say, where it had absurdly long load times and all these issues. And then 4 or so years later, 5PB finally got around to putting a patch on. And a lot of people have said, oh, since the patch, the game's a lot better, the port's not half bad now that it's patched. When really, no, that's not true. The port is still awful, and I will show you why. And so, if you haven't guessed by today's title of the video, this will not be a super favorable review of this game. So let's begin. I'm just loading up the replay now. So let's begin by talking about Dodonpachi DOJ itself, the game, not the port. So, in case you haven't heard about me talk about this game enough, or somehow this is maybe one of the first videos of mine you see, DOJ itself is one of the greatest shmups of all time. Quite possibly my favorite shmup, even though I play Dodonpachi more, and have spent more time with Dodonpachi. DOJ still might be my favorite shmup. I think it is the better game of the two. I really haven't met anyone with a whole lot of negative things to say about the game itself. And what's also cool about it now is that you can access it with a PGM, a PGM bootleg. So even if you're not wanting to emulate the game, you still have at least that option where it's not super expensive. I mean, it's still pretty pricey when you add up all the parts, but you're looking around $300 or so with everything all together. But now let's talk about this port, DOJ Plus Black Label, whatever. Such a long title. Anyway. So there is a previous port of DOJ on the PS2 that I think many of you might be familiar with. And overall that is a fantastic port. It is not perfect, and one day maybe I'll review that one in detail, but needs to say it's almost perfect, but I feel like some of the slowdown on it isn't accurate compared to the PCB. But it's still pretty damn close, and it's a really solid port, especially for the PS2 ones. And so the story with this 360 port is that the PS2 port is incomplete in that it came out before Black Label was released, or around that time. Anyway, Black Label is not in the PS2 port. So DOJ has two different versions. It has White Label and Black Label. White Label is the first version. It's noticeably harder than Black Label. It has more intense rank build up. It has a funny thing in the loop system where you lose all your lives in the second loop and you have to regain them stage by stage. Overall, it's a much harder game than Black Label, and it has some jank elements to it too. If you want to see a really cool video of White Label, there's a lot of them. Check out Pazzy's videos on it, or check out Fufufu's Stunfest run. Both really great resources to learn more about White Label. But most players I know who play DOJ actually play this version, Black Label. And so this 360 port is the only available version of Black Label on console if you're tied to the concept of playing on console or whatever, rather than playing an emulator. However, no one that I'm aware of actually plays this port of DOJ Black Label seriously, and I'm going to explain why for a lot of reasons. But let's start with the history of this port, at least as far as I am aware. So rather than porting this game from scratch, taking the PCB code or whatever, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I can kind of imagine, rather than doing that like happened with the PS2 port, 5PP decided, let's just take a bit of a shortcut and just steal the PS2 port's code and dump it onto the 360. I'm sure it wasn't like, straight copy and paste, obviously, but I do know that it sounds like they didn't really make a lot of necessary changes, and it was kind of just a in some ways just like moving that code over, and that explains why the version, especially the pre-patch version, has such insane load times and is so unoptimized in many ways. However, the load times are not the only thing about this port that are an issue, because if it was just the load times and everything else was fine, hey, this would be a great port, right? Well, that's not the only issue. So in this run, I will point out more as they come up, but I feel like even yesterday when I was playing, I was finding more and more. Now that I own the PGM and have played on MAME and Shmup Arch so much, I know the game pretty well at this point. It's a lot easier for me to figure out and point out some of the weirdness of this port. So let's begin by talking about the input lag. So on the input lag index of my website, you'll see that this game has an input lag of 3 frames, the same as most cave shmups on the 360, to be honest. DFK, Decimiles, there's more of them too. Most of them anyway are 3 frames. SDOJ isn't. SDOJ is more. I think Akai Katana is also 4 as well. But, so this comes in as the same. Oh yeah, and Futari is only 2 if you turn off VSync, which is really cool. And so you'll also see when I did the testing of the PGM that the original hardware's input lag is 2 frames, which, you know, so 1 extra frame, that's not terrible or anything like that. However, outside just the number, I remember Iconoclast mentioned this too. It feels like there is something funky and off with the inputs of this game, where it's not necessarily just straight up lag. It does have that extra frame of lag. I mean, that is a bummer, but like I said, that's not super unusual for the 360 ports. But unlike the other 360 ports like DFK or Decimiles, something about the input in this game just feels off. It just feels kind of weird. I don't know what it is. It's hard to identify, but especially if you play a lot of DOJ, you can tell something is funky with the inputs. I don't know what it is. I wish I could really pinpoint it, because input lag wise, it is an extra frame, but I feel like there's more to it than that. There's something funky about how the inputs of this game feel, especially if you play a lot of the original. So there's that. So the control always feels weird, and I always feel like the controls feel slippery in a weird way. The ship's movement feels slippery, and I don't know why necessarily that is, but it feels a lot more like you're slipping around than on the original hardware. So then you have the input lag. That's a bummer. You know, that's a deal breaker in some cases, the funky controls and input lag. But there's actually more to this port that's wrong with that. Another one that definitely stands out is the lack of slowdown. So here's the bizarreness of how the slowdown works. And so you see the replay I'm showing here is an AXEA expert ship run. And overall, this is the weird part. When I was playing AEX, this was actually an older replay. I found the game to feel kind of funky, and I could tell that the game was not slowing down correctly. But it's not that far off of the PS2 port. However, if you play BEX, the slowdown is broken. There's something legitimately wrong with the slowdown if you play BEX. I don't know why that is. Like the ship, there's some kind of glitch or something going on where the B ship feels awful. And so there are a lot of sections where the slowdown is just gone. There is no slowdown in some really critical sections. And so, like the end boss fight of this level, for example, and the beginning of, and there's another sections that I'll point out as we go, where they just lack slowdown on the B ship for whatever reason, but the A ship has more of a semblance of slowdown. Bizarre. I don't know why that is. So okay, we've got bad input lag, we've got funky, weird slowdown that isn't really that close to the arcade version, but that isn't enough. That's not enough to sync this port. We gotta add in some more weird stuff. So another one is the rank. So the way this port calculates rank is different than the arcade version. There's some kind of weirdness going on there too, where yesterday I was doing a low rank run. This is kind of a low rank run as well, but the run you're seeing here with the BEX ship, and I was getting absurdly high rank for what I was doing compared to the PGM or whatever. It wasn't even close. It felt like I was getting extremely high rank. So I feel like something with the rank calculation in this port is also off. It doesn't feel like it's accurate at all to the arcade version. So when you stack all these up, it is way harder to play this game than to play the arcade version, but for all the wrong reasons. It's not like a cool remix or anything like that. It's like just so jank and busted that it makes the game a lot harder. And it also seems like the rank when you die doesn't really reset as much as it does on the original version, at least again from what I've experienced. And I feel like the B ship has more issues than the A ship. So I'm showing the A ship run because it was actually a clear. And the funny thing is, yesterday I tried and tried and tried for about an hour or two. I could not clear this game with the B ship or get a 1-all with the B ship. And the funny thing is, on the PGM, PCB, I can like 2-miss this game, or the first loop, no problem, on a pretty consistent basis. Like, it's pretty trivial of me to ever 1-all this game at this point, just because I've played it so much. But on the damn B-side ship, I could not get it clear. I was just getting, like, this section here on B ship has no slowdown at all. None. There's no slowdown. The bullets are just flying at you full speed. I was having to, like, panic bomb out of it. And so as I was playing yesterday, I was wondering, like, okay, I am clearly, because this replay I'm showing here is quite a bit older. I would say almost a year old at this point. I was going to make a Shmup review play long ago of this game, but never got around to it. And so I remember thinking, like, okay, why was I able to clear it a year ago with A ship, which is, you know, a harder ship to clear with at least 1-all than the B ship. And I'm definitely a much better player since then, you know. What is going on? And then I'm watching the replay back and I'm thinking, okay, this actually has more slowdown than the B ship does. And I wish I would have saved some of those replays to show you. But yeah, no, there's tons of sections that just have no slowdown and you just get mollywopped, and this section is one of it. So on the B ship, it's comical to try and play these sections with that ship. So I don't know how this happened. I don't know what exactly causes the A ship to have slowdown and the B ship not. Like, this section right here is a good example. There is no slowdown right here when I was playing yesterday with B ship. It just kept rolling. And even there, even with the A ship, the slowdown that the game has is still less accurate than the slowdown of the arcade version. There's just certain sections that still don't slow down. And so yeah, there's a lot of really weird issues with this game's slowdown, with its rank. And if you're a B ship player, forget it. I almost cleared that section. Yeah, so this is not the most stellar run ever by any means, but I wanted to show it because I'm using what I call low rank strats. So I'm basically not chaining, I'm not using hyper, I'm just trying to keep the rank as low as possible, and I'm not sure if I do too much. Again, this section with the B ship had no slowdown. The rails were just full speed ahead. The game is a lot harder without slowdown, I'll tell you that much. And yeah, I made it to about halfway through stage 5, the last stage, on what I would consider a really good run, and I still couldn't clear this game, even though on the arcade version I clear it casually. I clear it without trying, basically. So something is definitely a miss with this port, and I feel pretty bad for anyone who picks this up and this is their first experience with DOJ. So this right here, so this has some slowdown right here in this replay. In the yeah, like I said, I was playing with B-Ship yesterday. These patterns had no slowdown at all. They were just flying full speed ahead. So yeah, I had to like bomb out of this section more than I would. So I don't know. Yeah, this port is definitely busted in those regards. So let's also talk about what this port has to offer outside of its bad gameplay. So it's called Black Label Plus because it has some extra features. It has a hilarious arrange mode, and I mean that in a good and a bad way. And it has a training mode, you could call it. And so what's great about the PS2 port is that it has really robust training options. The best of the options on the PS2 that I can think of. So not only does it have a stage select, but allows you to select the bosses. It doesn't have the mid-stage select, unfortunately, but the PS2 port also lets you configure lots of different factors. I don't know if you can change rank directly, I can't remember. But I know you can configure like your hyper level, your power-up level, all that stuff. So you can really pretty closely simulate what's going on. I'm not sure if you can adjust rank or not, I can't remember. But I do know that at least you can do that. On this port, all you can do is stage select, so you can't boss select, so no practicing against the bosses. And then to get, whenever you go into a new stage, it defaults to the lowest power setting. And there are no toggles like on the PS2 port where you can toggle how high your shot level is, or laser, or whatever, or hyper, or any of that. So those don't exist. And what it will do is it will default you to the lowest power shot level. And for a long time, I thought, okay, that's what you have to do. So you have to enter the second loop with no power. That's pretty crazy. Then I found out if you hit some, wow. This is an old replay. I'm getting wrecked by some pretty basic stuff. But anyway, if you press select or some really random button, I just figured it out by one day getting mad and mashing on the buttons until all of a sudden I powered up. So yeah, the stage select is broken. It's bare bones to the point of being almost useless. So I guess if you want to practice stage 4 or 5, it's kind of useful, but other than that, like I said, it lacks any of those features. And then the UI has some coolness, I have to admit. Like, I really like the way the UI looks and the overall presentation of this port. Like the menu designs and all that look really cool. But there are some features that I do appreciate. Like you're able to pick, do some screen configuring, what size of the screen you want, what orientation. You're not just locked into one rotation like on the PS2 port. However, compared to the other 360 ports, it is definitely the 360K ports. It is definitely the worst screen options, because whenever you can't really adjust the up and down, the vertical and horizontal size independently of each other. You just have an overscan. So, on some monitors that's kind of a bummer. Not that big of a deal. And also just the UI itself of configuring the video options and stuff is just really janky. You have to guess what you want and then exit and see if it worked. And if it doesn't, you have to go back and try again. You have to just kind of guess at it and go back and forth rather than doing it in real time like most shmups, So that's another just kind of pain that, on top of the load times, can get pretty stupid. And then the replay system. So I'm glad there's a replay system, so at least there is one, and it does work. Like right now we're watching a replay. However, you can only hold 4 replays or something like that. Like the replay slots are really limited. I think it's about 4 or 5. It's a lot lower than most shmups. And so yeah, if you ever have a replay that you want to save, you know, you better hang on to that bad boy, because you don't have a lot of room. I can't believe this cleared, to be honest. So when you look back at, you know, this stage 5, it's not bad with AEX, especially compared to the B ship, but right now I'm actually a B ship player, not an A ship player, so it's pretty much useless to me to even try and play this port because B ship is broken, the slowdown doesn't work, and I feel like the rank calculation's even worse on B ship. I feel like they just never tested B ship. They never tested to see, does this ship have issues? Let's just test A ship and call it a day. Or who knows, maybe the patched version messed up B ship but fixed A ship, I have no idea. And I think most people play A ship, so they don't really, have never really tested B ship too much or noticed this, or I don't know. So let's talk about the arrange mode, which is coming up next, because I have some replays upon that. The arrange mode, when I first played it, I have to admit I really liked it, just because it's so silly and weird. But it's nothing more than a fun little gimmick, I guess you could say, because there's no real, when you compare it to a real arrange mode like Ketsui Destiny or Black Label DFK, or, you know, things like that, yeah, it's hilarious how bad this arrange mode it is. What it is that you don't get extends, I remember that. Your comboing meter is really extended, so you can combo like crazy. And then instead of having a regular shot, you are always in hyper. And then when you hyper, you enter bullet canceling hyper. So it's a fun little mode just for fun. It definitely is, but I've talked to some people about it, like actually trying to score the mode, and a lot of people said there's just some dumb broken stuff you can do. And then the mode kind of I don't know, it's still kind of fun, and it might still be the best part of this game, to be honest, is that mode, because the arcade mode is a waste of time, to be honest. I guess if you play A ship, it's not horrific, but you're still dealing with weird rank calculation and weird input problems. And so I just don't feel like this port's really nothing I would ever recommend, especially because, as far as I'm aware, last time I checked, it's like $150 to get, and then it's region locked to a Japanese Japanese Xbox 360. So to play this, you either have to play on a modded Xbox 360, or you need to have a Japanese region 360. So let's watch some replays. The menus themselves, let's just take a look here. I'll show you. I'm not going to mess with the video or whatever because I don't want to mess up the recording, but see, you just do the overscan and stuff like that. And when it comes to the overscan amount or where you want to play, another thing is, if you want to adjust where the game is on screen, like you want to move it up, down, left, or right, which I do sometimes based on my monitor, you can't do that through the options menu. You have to do it in-game by pressing select and opening the option menu in-game, which is, again, just really obscure and something maybe most people would never find. They would just assume you'd do it from the options menu like every other shmup. A huge plus of this game, though, that cannot be denied is the arranged soundtrack is outstanding. One of the best arranged soundtracks I've ever heard. DOJ itself has a great soundtrack, but this 360 port's OST, play it in arranged mode every time because it is fantastic. I've used it a lot on the podcast too. So definitely do that. Let's just going from menu to menu. There's the load times. Let's hop into arcade mode just to show you kind of the load times there. And again, this is patched, so this isn't the original unpatched, which is even more cumbersome. And the problem is that, you know, the 360 patches and stuff are not going to be available forever. So the people who are going to invest in a Japanese, you know, Xbox 360 and aren't going to go the homebrew route or anything like that, ironically, are probably going to get owned in the future because they're not going to have access to the patch, which is a bummer. So yeah, you have to record to replay here. Stage select. Let me show you stage select. Again, that's all you get. Shot type, stage, and when you enter a stage, like let's enter 2-3. Arcade 6 right here next to me. You enter 2-3. You are fully powered down unless you hit some button like select, and there's no real indication of how you need to do that either. You just have to figure it out by random chance. So again, there's just no thought went into this port at all. I feel like they threw it together in the course of like a week or two or something. Probably not that long because the UI is pretty nice. Like the pictures and stuff are pretty nice. But yeah, and if you ever accidentally back out, you have to go through loading menus here. So now let's watch some X mode. I never got a full clear of X mode because I got burnt out on it, but I got mostly a clear of it up to Hibachi. What it does is after you beat the 1-5 boss, you fight Hibachi. It's basically a one round game, like in if you ever select one round, that's what happens. I think more people should try playing one round for fun. That might be one of my projects of the future, is getting a one round cleared. So as you'll see here, the shot type is defaulting to hyper, which when I first fired it up, okay, so like I said, this mode is actually pretty fun for kicks and giggles, for like the memes basically. But as far as like a serious arrange mode or whatever, yeah, no, it's definitely not good. But you don't really have to learn how to chain the stages. The chaining just is extremely lenient. Not that that matters much, but there you go. And then when you activate hyper, you activate a bullet canceling hyper. I think I can hop to a stage forward. Okay, let's hop, that's stage 1. That's stage 2. Let's get to stage 3 at least. So here I'm in a bullet canceling hyper, and like it says, it sucks up the bullets. So that's pretty fun. And then you get more hypers. So it's extremely generous with the hypers it gives you. And basically, I don't know what the meta of this system is, but if you're playing it for survival, you can just save up those hypers for difficult sections and then cash them out. Let's hop to stage 4. Okay, we'll watch stages 4 and 5. So like I mentioned, there are no extends. I think you can still get the hidden extend, but there are no scoring extends that I'm aware of. Or maybe the scoring extend is extremely high and I just never achieved it. That is a possibility. But I kind of suspect that there are no extends because survival is way easier in this mode than the original mode. It's like kind of like playing the game with training wheels on, to be honest. Because if you're in any kind of difficult section, you can just automatically go into hyper mode and hold your laser and just hang out. Nothing can hurt you at that point. Unless you ram into an enemy or something, I guess. So this section here, and you'll notice again, I should have tried this with B-Ship as well, but you'll notice here that the slowdown emulation isn't horrible. It's kind of similar to how the PS2 port is, but if you play B-Ship, no, that's not the case. A lot of the slowdown is just straight up missing if you play B-Ship. It's way harder. And my only thinking is there's some kind of glitch going on and they never tested it, they never looked into it. They're like, well, A ship, that's what everyone plays, that's what we're going to test with, and they never checked in to make sure that B ship functions correctly. Like I said, so this is a little bit of playing the game with training wheels on. You can just hang back and fire away. It's, like I said, it's kind of a fun mode if you're just kicking it. But the people I've asked about ask, hey, does anyone play this mode at Score for All? And everyone said no, because I guess there's probably just some really jank stuff you can do. So let's see if I get the extend or not. I'm curious. Yes, so you do get the extend. So the only problem is just it seems when I was playing this here, I was like, okay, I'm going to easily march through this mode, no problems. Except I think the first time I got the 1-all of this game, or I guess what you would consider a 1-all, I didn't know hibachi existed, and so I remember I think hibachi's I got up like the Guilty Gear player. I just got up and walked away from the setup, and then hibachi spawned and killed me while I was away from the arcade stick. I was running back to grab it. It was too late. So I think this is my second attempt at a clear, like a second good one, where I remember that hibachi exists in this mode. So like I said, as far as most of the stages, like 90% of the game, it really is not a challenge at all. Like here you can see this has no slowdown. I don't know if that's rank or bad emulation or whatever, bad porting, because on the PGM, that section has slowdown in it, so you can use it to dodge. That will kill you, by the way, which is a bizarre change. But the part where this ramp thing comes down, in the arcade version, it doesn't harm you. It's just a fun little animation. But in this mode, it will kill you when it falls down. So you have to dodge it. That's why you see me dodging that animation there. Again, though, at this point the game looks absolutely trivial, and it kind of is. That's why the mode's kind of crappy, outside of just a little bit of you know. It reminds me of when you were a kid and you could adjust the height of your basketball hoop, and you adjusted it to like 5 feet, and then you just started dunking and stuff on your little mini basketball hoop. It's kind of like that. It's like taking DOJ and lowering its height to 5 feet so you can dunk on it. Except at the end, your basketball hoop, I don't know, goes rogue on you and runs away. Because the hibachi fight is actually more challenging, and I'll show you why when we get there. But coming into stage 5, I was thinking, okay, this is so absurdly easy. Is it even worth covering it on the show? But I played it out, and so we'll see. Right here, I'm taking a break. That's why the replay is taking so long. The way the replays work on this is if you take a long time between stages, then it is forever that way, and your replay will always be that way, which is probably the case for most 360 ports. I'm not sure, but let's skip ahead, shall we? Here we go, stage 5. Again, the meta is simple. It's just bullet cancel everything, and then try and make your way to a hyper, and you're good. And rinse and repeat. And I think that's what I will do for the rest of this stage. Because I think I've got the rank really high, to where if I don't have a hyper activated, I'm not going to survive for that long. But it basically throws you a hyper the second your first hyper or whatever deactivates. So it's just kind of a game of cat and mouse there. Chase the hyper. Like I said, it is kind of fun to, yeah, reminder, those big blasts do not get canceled, because they're not technically bullets, I guess. I'm sure that's gotten some people playing this mode. So it just makes any of the difficult sections pretty trivial, because you can just bullet cancel your way through them. The fact that your hyper is always on though is kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. I just feel like they could have given this mode a little more thought. I don't know what exactly they could have done otherwise. Maybe tone down the bullet canceling, give you hypers less often. Stuff like that, I think. Just rebalance it a little bit so where it's not, you're just literally hypering your way through the entire game if you so choose. So a little fun fact about DOJ, now that we're here on stage 5, is that DOJ's stage 5 has a boss rush of all the Dodonpachi bosses. So that boss right there, that was the stage 3 boss. Then the one earlier was the stage 4 boss. I don't know if we've already encountered. Here's the stage 5 boss right here. And I'm trying to think what the... I don't know if the stage 6 boss makes an appearance actually, now that I think about it. We'll keep our eye out, maybe he does. And I think we already passed the stage 1 mid-boss. Or stage 1 boss. Mini-boss, whatever you call it. That might have been him right there. So I thought that was a really cool Easter egg for the DDP players who are playing this for the first time. Another thing, a fun thing about DOJ itself is that it has a lot of recycled assets from DDP, but they're recolored and reused in a way that's not super obvious, so I feel like they did a good job with there doing that, kind of keeping the vibe consistent. Like a really good example here is the ground down here is definitely the same textures as stage 1 from DDP. They just recolor it to be a different color and then move it to the end of the game. Yeah, the game, well, I guess the one thing about the port I have to commend is visually it does look great. That's very true. Probably maybe another reason why the inputs feel so weird is something to do with the V-Sync or something is funky. I have no idea, but the game does look really good. The UIs look good. Like when you play it, you want to like it. Every time I play this port, I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. It has a killer soundtrack. It's DOJ, it's the only port of Black Label. It's on the 360, my favorite console. So many things about this game that make me want to like it, but if you're a DDP player or a Shmup player who happens to play Type B, maybe, I just really cannot recommend this, especially at the prices it goes for today. And the other options to play DOJ, because I know people don't like emulation, but if you are really against emulation, you can play the PS2 port, but that would be only white label. So if you want to play Black Label, you can play the PGM bootleg, or you can pony up the money and buy the PCB itself, though I'm sure that's pretty expensive, probably around $800 to $1,000, I think, at this point, maybe more. Yeah, and so I remember at this point, the first time I just got up and left. So the hard part about Hibachi is that you don't have bombs, really. So you don't have bombs. And I have no idea why I didn't hyper. Maybe I thought I could get through it. But anyway, the problem is that your hypers will usually respawn out of the way, or you don't do enough meter to get hypers. So he's actually like pretty hard in that mode, because when you die, you don't regain your hyper meter that much, and so you gotta fight Hibachi pretty straight up without any bombs or anything. So that's what makes the last fight there hard. Anyway, so that's my Shmup review play of DOJ Black Label Plus for the Xbox 360. I would say if you don't own it, don't bother to buy it. The port is not good for a lot of reasons, as far as faithfulness to the arcade version, playability, fun factor. I don't really know anyone who's like firing up their Black Label Plus port that often, if at all. Especially when you play the game, there's so many options to play it. You can play it on Shmup Arch, you know, the emulator that I use, or you can play it on Shmup MAME if you want to go the MAME route, or you can play it on a PGM, or you can play it on PCB, or you can play the PS2 white label port. So all options to play DOJ. Unfortunately, I really wish there was a solid console port for Black Label, like a Destiny, you know, M2. The funny thing is, it's like, I could see people not wanting this ported by M2 because it's already been ported twice in a way, you know, onto the PS2, but that's white label, and then on 360, but this port just sucks. So I feel like it kind of does need a real port at some point, hopefully by M2, you know, with a real arranged mode. And there's just so much. It's one of the best shmups, you know, so. But I know there's also a long list of really great shmups that need that attention too. So maybe someday we'll get an M2 release of this. Thanks for tuning in.